I'd like to call this meeting of the Zion City Council to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye. Here.
Commissioner Patine?
Here.
Commissioner McKinney?
Here.
Commissioner McDowell?
Here.
Mayor Hill?
Here. We'd like to remind anybody that wishes to speak during the public comments that there's a sign-up sheet in the back and you need to sign up. Pastor Williamson.
Mayor Hill, members of the City Council, and the citizens of Zion, and the servants here, good evening. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, creator of the heavens and earth, thank you for hearing our prayers. We thank you, Emmanuel, for being with us here tonight. This holiday season reminds us of your goodness to us, reaching out and sharing such a bold, redemptive opportunity, not only with us, but with the whole world. So how much more shall we approach your throne with reverence and awe? We come into your holy presence humbly requesting of you to bless this meeting of our city leaders, servants, and community members. We ask you, God, to provide wisdom and discernment, especially for the members of the council, as they hear from us, the people of Zion, as they manage what you have given them and held them accountable for within our city. We ask you for wisdom regarding the subjects that will be discussed tonight that have lasting effects for years to come. Amen. Thank you.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 is agenda changes. Do any of the commissioners have any agenda changes? I would like to delete item number 13, the closed session. And we will just then continue through, after announcements, we'll go to item number 14. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as changed?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Patine?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item number 5 is a public hearing of proposed property tax levy for 2017. I declare the public hearing open. And if anyone is, we will be, commissioners have a document here that we'll be referring to as we're discussing the tax levy. And I believe there are copies for your, you can have it and follow along on what we're talking about they're in the back. So grab a copy if you like. Yes, sir. That's it. And I will turn this over to Mr. Naval.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm going to go through first and just kind of give a brief explanation of how the levy works and what we're going to be looking at tonight.
Let me follow up, and Director Naval will give a. I'm all flustered up here. I'm sorry. We'll give a summary of what we're looking at for the levy, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions or speak when he's done. So just so you know that we will be taking input from you if you wish to speak. Mr. Naval.
So the levy is the amount of money that we're asking for operations that will go onto your tax bills next year. We're restricted on the amount that we can ask for by an increase over prior year's levies. That's the lesser of 5% or consumer price index, which was 2.1 this year. So our levy can only go up by 2.1% maximum compared to prior years. Now that doesn't take into account any new construction that went onto the tax rolls Or in this case, this year, we also had TIF 1, the downtown TIF district closed. So the value of that, the development that was in that TIF district also goes on the tax rolls as new construction. So I'll be talking about 2.1% on essentially what the old tax base was, and also the taxes on the new construction and the TIF as I kind of go through this. What I did is I prepared 4 scenarios. The first one being a maximum levy. That's if we went up 2.1%, got the taxes on the new construction and the taxes on the TIF. And I'll go through some details, but I'll have some examples on what the effect of that would be and what it would mean to us and a taxpayer. I also have a flat levy scenario, which is where we ask for the exact same amount as last year. We pass on going up to 2.1%, and we don't take any of the taxes on the new construction. Those are basically the 2 extremes. I also did kind of 2 in-between scenarios. One's I'm calling the 2.1% levy, which is we're asking for the 2.1% increase, but the taxes on the new construction is basically going to alleviate burden on the entire tax base. And then what I'm calling a no effect levy, which is no effect on somebody's tax bill. So we're only going after the taxes on the new construction and the TIF, and we're not taking the 2.1%. So that the city's portion of somebody's tax bill theoretically wouldn't increase from a prior year under that scenario.
Okay, before you go on, it's just something I have to be sure that I'm clear in my mind. If we would pass up on the new construction and the TIF, it's my understanding that that would bring, if the value of that in new tax dollars to the city is about $350,000.
Yeah, just shy of 400 actually.
And if we pass on that, we pass on that every year.
Correct.
So it's not just passing on it for $350,000 this year. For the next 10 years, that would come out to $3.5 million.
Any amount we pass on, we wouldn't be able to collect because, again, next year they might say consumer price index is 2% again. We can only go up 2% of the highest levy in the prior years. So if we passed on this amount this year, we can only go up 2% on the amount we pass.
Okay, I just want to
So if we get that 400,000 from those taxes, we could go up 2% on that or whatever, but
okay.
yeah, you'd be passing on that for every year, basically hereafter.
Okay.
So what you have on the second page, that was just kind of the memo. What I did is just on each one of these, the format's going to be the same. Where I said what the total levy is, what the increase would be, or the new revenue to the city, and then the breakdown of how much is coming from the old tax base and how much is coming from the new construction and the TIF. I also show what the city's tax rate effect would be, and then I also have on a $150,000 house, assuming values went up 8%, what the effect would be on somebody's tax bill. And then I broke down where those funds would be going, last year's levy to this year's levy. And then I have some explanation that I'll get into on each of the funds. So the maximum levy, $7,290,843, would be a $527,661 increase from the prior year's extension, of which 135 of that's coming from the new tax base, and approximately 390,000 from new construction in the TIF. The city's tax rate would go from 2.64 to 2.47, which is a decrease of about 6.4%. Basically, big picture, if you look at it, if values went up 8%, all things equal, if values went up 8% and we asked the same amount, the tax rate would go down 8%, because those two multiplied equals the amount we're asking for. So if values go up 8% and our levy's going up 2%, basically the rate's going to go down 6%. So that's kind of how you can look at this. Now, under the max levy, I'm not proposing many changes here in the original funds, the general fund, street and bridge, fire protection, ambulance service. IMRF, we had an increased amount in prior years because that fund was at a deficit. So we were digging that fund out of a deficit position. We did that, so I'm recommending that we decrease that amount. However, our liability insurance, as we just renewed, is going up significantly. So we'd have to levy about 121,000 more there. The police and fire pensions are really the big elephant in the room. We've talked about them before, they have been. The fire pension levy that I'm proposing in the max is $1,272,000. The state statutory minimum required is $1,231,000. So I'm proposing that we actually levy a little more than the minimum to start basically paying down that liability. I mean, everyone I've talked to, you probably heard this before. I'm going to be saying it to the masses, though. I look at these as kind of like a credit card bill that we're paying the minimum on. You have a bill and you're paying the minimum, but that interest is still accruing, and you'll never get out of that hole if you keep paying the minimum. You have to start by paying $20 more a month. It's a small amount, but it'll dig you out of that hole over time. This is what I'm proposing is our $20 a month. Start paying some extra. The police pension levy amount I'm proposing is $1,581,000. The state hasn't completed its valuation of the minimum requirement, but I estimate that at about $1,529,000. I did get an actuarial valuation since this, and what I estimated here as the actuarial recommended amount of $1,843,000 is actually $2,088,000 is what they would recommend that we levy to fully catch up in a relatively short period of time. So again, I'm proposing a little more than the minimum required amount to start gaining some ground, because over time, the minimum amounts went up by $400,000 compared to last year.
David, is the actuarial based on projected growth in our investments, or is something else?
They look at our current staffing, raises over time based on historical raises, and what projected market returns will be. So they've potentially increasing return on investment. We still. Yeah.
Still the actuarial is 1.8 million.
It's actually $2,088,000. I received that after I prepared this.
But I guess I have to ask a question. Are the actuarials, I thought that when we had our audit the last time, and they talked about the pension fund, and our pension fund unfunded liability went somewhere from 44 million to 65 million overnight, because what they said is the returns, the return that they were counting on the $44 million unfunded pension was based on 5% return on the stock market, or on the investments.
It was based on 4%.
4%.
Right, and it used to be 7%. State statute changed for actuaries on what returns they could use.
Okay, then the 44 million was based on 7%, and when they dropped it to 4%,
it spiked up.
That's what made it go to 65 million. So I think that if I'm understanding what you're asking, is that the stock market's going crazy right now. So what is our
actuarial?
Right? How does that all work in here? And I appreciate your talking about credit cards, but I would ask you if and this is a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer it. If you've got a credit card and you're paying the minimum every month, and you have to you want to pay the extra $20 or $50 a month to start paying it down, but you have to make a choice between whether you eat or whether you pay your credit card down. Where are you going to spend the $20 or $40 or $50 extra? And I think that's the same question that we have to ask. I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay it down, but we don't have a whole lot of money left when we look at these numbers. Our streets are not in real good shape, and if we can, every dollar we can get to put into upgrading our infrastructure in the city, I think we still have to provide services. And I understand your finance background on this, but I also look at, and I know this is going to sound, people are going to think I'm crazy when I say this, is that if our unfunded balance is $65 million, there's no way we can ever pay that down. So we need to get help someplace else. We can't do that ourselves. And my question is, it's almost like, why bother? Because at some point this is going to explode, and it's going to explode all across the state because everybody's in the same position we are. So I'm just throwing that out there as I heard your analogy of credit cards, but go ahead.
Well, in that, you know, when it comes time for actual adoption of the ordinance, the motion could be made for that levy total, and if you wanted to reallocate those funds to general instead of the pensions, bring the pensions down to the minimum, you can do that. You know, and we've already had this discussion, so you know, when it was 30 million unfunded, it was 20 million unfunded.
Have us paying more than the minimum into the.
No. This is the only option that has us paying more than the minimum into the pensions,
Okay,
by about 50,000 apiece.
all right.
So my thought was that 50,000, again, compounding over 20 years might be $500,000 that helps, and that's what they're gonna calculate the actuaries to. Next year, our pensions might go up 300,000 again, but maybe they only go up 250,000 if we do this now. So that's the decision you'll have to make.
Right, okay.
There really wasn't any more, any other items on the max levy.
Did you talk about the last item on that page? I may have missed it.
The Social Security?
No, that this leaves 16,000.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the first line on that table shows that there's, with a $527,000 increase in levy, pretty much all of that's going to the pensions. The revenue in the general fund would increase by $16,000 under this scenario. So it's basically a flat levy for general fund revenues. The second one I have is the flat levy recap, and that's the one I was saying is we asked the exact same amount as last year. The city's tax rate, under that, there would be no new revenue. We're passing on the taxes on the TIF, the new construction. The city's tax rate would go from 2.6 to 2.3, a decrease of approximately 13%. The effect on the city's portion of taxes on a $150,000 house would be a decrease of about $80 annually. Now, the table looks a lot different under this scenario because if we're not asking for any more money, the amount we have to levy for pensions is up $400,000 from last year, which means that if we're not asking for more money, but we have to put $400,000 more in the pensions, $400,000 needs to come off somewhere else. So you'll see that under this option, we'd actually lose $418,000 of revenue in the general fund, which would be catastrophic. I mean, that's virtually impossible to recover from under our current minimal budget operations right now. So I put this out there just to show the impact of the two options. Everything else is pretty much the same on that table except police and fire pension under this option would be $1,529,000 rather than $1,581,000 because that's the minimum required, and $1,231,000 for fire instead of $1,272,000. Again, bringing it back down to the minimum required and not paying off that extra or putting extra into those funds. The 2.1% is a slight step above the flat. It's still extreme impact on us. This is where we just do the inflationary amount and let the new construction taxes go. It would result in $142,000 of new revenues. But again, if we have to put $400,000 into the pension and we're only getting $130,000 new revenue, you have a $270,000 decrease in general fund revenues. But that would bring the city's tax rate down about 11% and make an effect on a $150,000 house on the city's tax bill portion of a decrease of about $55. Again, minimum pensions, so not much there different from the flat. And then I had presented a fourth option, which is what if we kind of left everyone's taxes amount where they were and we only took the tax revenue on the new construction and the TIF? That would be a $400,000 increase, $400,000 in new revenue. The rate would go down about 8%. There'd be no change on somebody's tax bill. And again, when I say no change, some people's values might go up 10%, some might go 6%. This is just this assumption we have to make. based on kind of the current factors, the average. But again, there's no, with that 400,000, we're doing the minimum on the pensions, and as I said, 400,000 minimum, the minimum that we had to put into the pensions went up 400,000, so you can see there's really no new revenue at all for the city in the general fund. It's all going to the pensions. Everything else is pretty much the same on that levy as well. So my recommendation, I mean, would be that we do the max. We've held our levy pretty flat over the past years, except for new construction when the hospital expansion went on. And put that money towards the pensions. Again, that's a decision for council to make, and especially if you're here after public, we'll discuss the options later, but that's a summary of the levy. So if there's any questions.
Does anyone wish to speak or ask questions at the public hearing?
I do.
Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Kathy Champagne. First of all, Director Nabel, thank you. This is great. It was a good package. I think that I won't even notice $15 a year on my taxes, and if I do, it'll get lost in all the school money that they're going to tax me. I think you should go beyond that. I understand what Director Nabel is saying about paying down the credit card, and I think he's right. And I hear what you're saying about this $65 million that we're never going to reach, and you're right. But somewhere along the line, if you keep cutting, you're cannibalizing yourselves, and I think that's the point you've reached. You've cut back on services. I know Chief Lewis has consolidated, and talking about consolidations, we've consolidated the dispatchers, you've cut employees. It's time to start investing in the city again, and I'd like you to take some more tax money from me. I'd pay $20 or $25 more a year if that would help you turn around and get to the streets, hire more personnel, get body cameras, get those rental assessments. I think we need to do that. I think that we need to invest in the city. And you're not responsible for reining in the school districts. We are at the ballot box. And I think that our citizens have to get more active about that. But I don't want to see you go flat, and I don't want to see you cut anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay. Please state your name for the record again.
Sure.
And my name is Crystal Encarnacion. So, and I looked at this package too, and it is a pretty good one. I mean, I like how you put it together. I would prefer we went flat. And I say this because whereas some people might can afford $15, $25, there are those who cannot. There are those that are struggling to pay their taxes now. And yet, and you're talking about doing an increase, that's only going to make it much harder, regardless of whether it's $1, $10, or $15, $25. We can't afford it. So I prefer we not do it, considering Zion is paying some of the highest taxes there is anyway. So I prefer we really not increase our taxes and figure out another way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Hill, honorable sirs, gentle ladies, it is my recommendation to stay with either the flat tax or whatever will be lower. I am being, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but I'm already being nickel-dimed to death with other taxes. I have my quarterly water and sewer bill, which some might argue is for a product, but I say it's a tax. It's $125, $124.85. I have my monthly, that's quarterly. I have my monthly telephone bill. The municipal tax is $5.35 a month on my telephone bill. Excuse me. I have my gas bill. The municipal tax is $2.30. I'm sorry, that's my electric bill, $2.30 a month. And I have my gas bill, municipal tax, almost $6 a month. That's a lot of money. $40 for 2 years, $20 a year on my old Dodge, which I'm trying to sell, but I did buy a sticker. That's a lot of money. Doesn't sound like much, but multiply that times the 23,000 residents, or however many dwellings there are in the city, that's a lot of money coming in. Also, there is a 1.5%, I believe it is, refund from the state of Illinois, if the state of Illinois ever pays its bills, on the sales tax that's collected in the city. Therefore, I respectfully request that you leave the levy as it is or even lower it so that my taxes will go down. Now, what about services? What kind of services do I expect? We have approximately 50 or 52 sworn police officers.
Not close.
How many?
46.
46. 46 sworn police officers. The way I figure it, based on, I believe they work a 12-hour shift.
8-hour shift.
8-hour shift. They need at least 4 shifts, 4 end. That's 10 officers during a shift, 8 officers, whatever it is. I understand that. They should be paid, but in my opinion, that is plenty enough. The services that they give me primarily are vacation watch on our home when we go south. The fire department with 18 firefighters, in my opinion, is woefully undermanned. I could understand it if you put new tax money towards hiring new firefighters. Streets and sanitation, with no disrespect to Mr. Colangelo, the services that I get are winter street plowing and when they repair pipelines, which break, but then they call in contractors to do it. Finance has a number of people working there. I don't know how many. I think he could probably hold the line. Again, this is with no disrespect. I like all of you. I appreciate what you do. But the only department, in my opinion, that is undermanned is the fire department. So again, I respectfully request that you leave the levy the same or let it go down so that my taxes drop. And in closing, my Social Security benefit did go up last year. 80 cents a month. 80 cents a month is what my Social Security benefit went up. I thank you for your time, your courtesy, and your thoughts on this matter. Permission to stand down, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Thank you. I reside at 2818 Ezekiel Avenue, and my wife and 4 kids and I live there, and we enjoy living there in the city of Zion. I work at CTCA, have been there for over 11 years, and I attend church here in Zion as one of the leaders there. And I would like to stay here. I'm trying to be a positive figure in the city and encouraging people to stay and to live here in the city and be a part of the solution that makes it better. So I want you to know that raising taxes residentially does bother me, and if it keeps going up, I'm working hard at keeping my residents here and not going over the border, though I've thought about it for the last 4 years. So taxes don't help in that regard. Saying that, I know that the city needs to have funds to do the work that it has to do. I think I'm against the schools taking most of that money, which I think it was 75%. I don't know if that was correct or not, but the city needs the money to do what it needs to do to function. And then also, I don't know about the credit card analogy. We really encourage not to use credit cards, but use them wisely and not spend more money than you have, and then paying that off as soon as possible, when you know you're able to do that. So I would recommend that we wouldn't spend more money than we have. I'm used to the zero balance budget idea, and just being introduced more to the way the budget is done in the city. So I know that'll be difficult, but trying to keep that levy as low as possible. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, commissioners. What's that? I'm sorry.
I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know if this is going to add anything to the conversation. Christine Smith, Zion resident.
I take people's points where I personally am willing to pay the maximum and pay extra to cover pensions. They're very important to keep those fully funded. I also take the point of people who say taxed enough already. We're we're discussing this little segment because we're able to discuss it. But there is this big elephant in the room, the 75% that's related to schools, that we never seem to have this discussion, and I wish we could have a discussion about that funding, because maybe if we could look at something like this funding, which is comparatively very small, and say, yes, we can cover this. But the thing that is keeping us from covering this is something that we have no control over, and it makes things difficult because, like I said, I understand the people who can say, yes, I can afford it, and the people who say, yes, I can't. So how can we start talking and dealing with the elephant in the room? And I don't have an answer, but that's just a comment.
Okay, thank you very much.
If it's not too bold to say, those kind of comments should also be said at a school board meeting, because those boards are the ones that make those decisions on their tax levy. I appreciate what you said.
Anybody else? Thank you all very much for your input. And commissioners, comments?
Well, I guess I can start. David, thank you for your work on this. I'm leaning towards the no impact levy, not taking the max, but the reason I'm leaning towards that is because it has no effect, not an increase in taxes in Zion. There might be a slight fluctuation, but relatively little, because the money that is coming in from the TIF district, that's the purpose. That's why we created the TIF district, so it would increase the amount of revenue in the city, and it has. And I think that that we could take that money, because that's what it was. That's what the TIF was designed to do. Thank God that's what it did do, and now we have those resources available. The same is true with new construction, and the largest chunk of the new construction is from the new construction added by the hospital. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so that's new funds coming onto the tax rolls, and I think because it doesn't affect the tax rate that our residents are going to pay, I would be willing to vote for that levy. If it was going to affect the tax rate and our taxes were going to go up, then I would not vote for that. I would vote for a levy that doesn't increase taxes. But this keeps it flat, and I'm an advocate for keeping our taxes flat or start moving in a downward direction. That's my comments.
Anybody else?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to take a different tack on this. I think that for too long, and I had the discussion, Director, with City Administrator Nabel also, the city has not fully lived up to the responsibilities of being fiscally responsible. They have too often shifted funds and underpaid the pensions, and now we are reaping the cost. We have to get the city back on a solid financial standard. So this is an opportunity for us. This is additional money that's going to come into the system. It's going to allow us to make payments. We're going to have additional money free up for motor fuel tax funds because we got a bond closing out. So we're going to have additional money for streets, not as much as we like or we need, but we really have to consider that we need to put the city back on a good financial standard. And I would have to argue that we should look seriously at going for the maximum levy in this case, because most of the burden is going to be taken up by TIF district and the new construction. And the pension issue is not going to go away. We are going to have to make these payments. Now, we can negotiate whether we want to take this opportunity to make more than the minimum payment, or if we feel that it's not going to make a sufficient dent, we can shift that money elsewhere. But I really think that we cannot continue to pretend that we can keep everything flat, keep everything the same, because the other options, we're looking at severe cuts in services, and I don't think anybody wants that. So that would be my take on this issue, is that we should seriously look at going with the maximum levy or something close to it.
Okay. Anybody else?
This is a hard decision because when Mr. Brimmer come up here, I was thinking that I'm an old guy too. And a lot of senior citizens are facing a lot of financial problems right now. And increasing anything for them is sometimes a turmoil. And I think of a lady that I saw at one of the stores in town. She was going to get her medicine, and she was trying to decide whether or not she should get her medicine or get her food because her taxes were so high. That hurt me to think about that. I heard her talking to the girl. And I understand what the city is facing too. I think that we have a great city. I think that the services that we provide are outstanding for the money that we have. We have people that are dedicated. You don't see our employees running off anywhere. They're sticking around and gutting it out. We have good leadership. Right now, I believe we have the best leadership we've had in a long time. And I feel honored to be part of the council, even at my age. I feel good about it. But I'm having a hard time wanting to increase the levy that would cause more burden on our citizens. And on the other hand, I feel like we have to do something to provide the services that we've been doing all this time. And when I look at both of them, I could probably afford $25 more. I'd go out and sell pencils on the street, do all right. Do that. But I take into consideration everything that has been said here tonight. But I would have to favor an increase that would help our city function in a better way.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I have a couple questions first for on the maximum levy. It says the city tax rate would go from, it would decrease.
Correct.
So we keep talking about, there seems to be in my mind a little confusion about taxes going up with the max levy or not.
What the rate would go down because values are going up. So if we asked for $100,000, that's a house's value times our rate to get to 100,000. So if the value of a house goes up and we're asking for 100,000, the rate to get to that 100,000 goes down because you multiply them together. If values go down, the rate goes up to get those multiplied together for 100,000. So even if we're increasing, because property values went up by more than what we can increase our levy by, the rate's going to go down. But when you multiply those two together, there's still the amount that's paid on the tax bill would still go up. So it's a product of the way the formula works out. Property values are growing faster than the amount that we're increasing our levy by. So the rate goes down. That's why in some other communities, like Lake Forest or something, they might have a rate of a fraction of this, a third of this, but they're probably paying more dollars in taxes because their value on a similar type property might be triple. So you can't just look at the rate, you have to look at the value times the rate to get to the dollar amount. So rates going down, which is good, because values are going up, even though we're asking for more money on the levy.
All right. I just, it just seemed like there was some confusion with, as the people were presenting their sides of it.
Sure. Now, there might be one piece of this, and I'd have to check with the assessor, but the senior tax freeze, I think that freezes value. So if our rate goes down, they would potentially pay less taxes with a frozen value under the senior tax freeze. But I'd have to check with the assessor to make 100% sure of that. But I think the property value is frozen, so values for those that qualify aren't going up by that 8%. So they would fully benefit from the rate decreasing by 6%, and actually their city portion of the taxes would go down by that 6%. So that, just in that discussion, that kind of triggered in my mind, but I'd have to check 100% on exactly how that works with the assessor's office. But I believe that's the way it would work out. As the rate goes down, their value's frozen, and they reap the benefit of that rate going down.
Well, my thinking on it is, I understand your position, Commissioner McDowell, and about the taxes, but I also have felt, since sitting on the council and joining several years ago, that we seem to be short-selling our city. And a lot of the comments when people come in here to talk about is the lack of services that we are getting, that they are getting within the city. And I think that hampers what we're able to do from the city council, all of our different departments, just operating effectively. So I would be in favor of being more aggressive in looking at the max levy for us to be able to operate effectively and efficiently, and not just throwing a Band-Aid at the problem, which we've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years. We've got to take some aggressive steps. We've tried so many different things to resolve the financial issues here, and I think we've got to, this is just my opinion, is that I would be in favor of the max levy.
Okay, I guess I wanted to comment on the confusion, and I agree, there's confusion, and where I hear the confusion is I hear people, they tell me this, and I read it on social network, that we have the highest taxes. We don't have the highest taxes by any stretch of the imagination in Lake County. We have the highest tax rate. But because the value is so low, people in Highland Park and Lake Forest and Lake Bluff and Vernon Hills and Libertyville are certainly paying a lot more taxes than we are. But for the value of our property, we're paying a lot of taxes. And I'm not here saying that our taxes aren't hurting people. I'm not saying that at all, but I think people confuse the tax rate. We have the highest tax rate in, it may be the state of Illinois, but we certainly aren't anywhere near the highest taxes in the state of Illinois. And I guess on my 2 cents on this is as I looked at these today and yesterday, my decision is between the first one and the last one. In no circumstances do I want to give up the new construction, because if we give up the new construction, we lose that money every single year, and unless something comes through soon, again, the pension funds are going to keep increasing, and we're going to be in extremely difficult financial position. I get discouraged because one of the priorities that I've had for myself, and I think the city council has worked hard, and the staff has worked hard to identify alternate revenue sources other than tax dollars. And one of them is new construction, and one of them is a TIF district. And the TIF district's been there for years, so it's not something that we did. But when we come up with an additional $527,000 in potential revenue, and we're going to be paying $480,000 of the $527,000 of new revenue is going to pensions that we will not be able to use to provide better services for the community. I get very discouraged, and I almost want to throw up my hands and say, you know, it's almost like it's beyond hope, but it isn't, because if we hadn't come up with the $527,000, we'd be cutting our services by $450,000. So it's doing some good, but it's not getting us to where we can make major improvements to the community. So I'm torn between number 1 and number 4, because neither one of them touches the new growth. And I guess Mr. Bremner, I understand what you've said, but I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. And I think I'm going to support the maximum levy, so that there would be an increase of $15 from the city's portion on the tax bill. We can do better than that, but I think Commissioner Fisher made a great point that we've been shortchanging the city for the last few years. But I will say that I think the financial problems that the city faces are not the weren't caused by this council, but we're put in a position where we have to try and dig ourselves out. We've been trying to do that, I think, responsibly. But I guess my position is going to be on the maximum levy also. I'll give anybody, if you want another opportunity to speak, the commissioners, now's the time.
It's definitely a tough decision.
And it is.
I feel like you do, Mayor. The max or no effect, I'm just leaning towards no effect.
Okay.
And it is a very difficult decision.
Okay. Any other comments? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Is there further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. I declare the public hearing closed. Item number 6 is citizen comments. Carl Williamson. Oh, you were wanting to talk about the levy?
Yeah, I thought that's what I had.
Okay. No, we're good.
That's what that was concerned.
No, okay. Thank you. Okay, no one wishes to speak during citizen comments. Item number 7 is the consent agenda. Clerk, please read the consent agenda.
Approval of minutes of a regular meeting held on December 5th, 2017 at 7 p.m. Approval but not release of closed session minutes of a meeting held on December 5th, 2017 at 8:10 p.m. Bills, vouchers 128036 through 128167 drawn on First Merit Bank, total $326,939.03.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
You have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. I'm going to ask that everyone, would you pass your closed session minutes? We have some information on it that we do not want to be left. The minutes. We talked about probable litigation in the last. And I want to be sure we don't leave those sitting around somewhere. That's it. That right there, Lloyd.
Which one? Let me check it out. Which one is that? Oh, okay. Buried it under here.
Skip that.
This is, let's see, this is it.
Thank you. Item number 8 is consider passing resolution as follows. 8A is amending personnel authorization for Director Colangelo.
Thank you, Your Honor. In 2016, several senior staff members of the Public Works Department retired and returned to their similar positions on a part-time basis. Those positions were never amended to reflect these changes. Excuse me. With the impending retirements of other, excuse me again. With the impending retirements of other senior staff members in 2018, staff feels it is the opportune time to reorganize the management level positions in the department and amend the changes that were made in 2016. The changes are as follows. Water Division Supervisor, full-time to part-time. Fleet Maintenance Supervisor, full-time to part-time. Administrative Assistant, 1 full-time to 2 part-time. In addition, staff proposes 1 Deputy Director of Public Works and Engineering, and 1, this is a type of 1 Superintendent of Operations. In a housekeeping measure, the position of crew leader and 5 seasonal workers had been moved to the building department as those duties were transferred to that department several years ago. No additional staff increases are anticipated with these changes at this time.
Is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve these amendments to the personnel authorization.
Is there a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item 8B is a resolution of commitment of motor fuel tax funds for 2018 FAU project per Director Colangelo.
Thank you once again, Your Honor. On February 20th of this year, the City Council approved 2 resolutions for the 2018 FAU project for submittal to the Lake County Council of Mayors applying for Surface Transportation Program funding. The project would consist of resurfacing 29th Street from Lewis Avenue to Galilee Avenue and 21st Street from Sheridan Road to Edina Boulevard has been approved and accepted. The amount of the grant awarded to the city for construction engineering is $521,600. The resolution before you, excuse me, is authorization from the city to utilize motor fuel tax funds for our 20% match of the project, which is $130,400. Staff requests and recommends approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve this resolution to authorize our matching funds for the project of $130,400.
We have a motion?
Second?
And a second. Is there discussion?
Point of order, sir.
Yes, sir.
FAU.
Federal Aid Urban.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Where was I?
We have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item 9 is consider passing ordinances as follows. 9A is providing for the levy and taxes for the city of Zion, Lake County, Illinois for the tax levy year 2017 to be collected in the year beginning January 1, 2018 and ending December 31st, 2018 for Director Naval.
I won't rehash everything again, I promise. As we discussed, my recommendation would be to go with the maximum levy of $7,290,843. And whatever council decides, I would also second Commissioner McDowell's point that we had great discussion here tonight and that discussion carry over to other taxing bodies as well. I don't think there's anything, we're about 13 to 14% of the tax bill, and whether flat, max, if other taxing bodies continue to increase the max, there's nothing we can do to offset that effect. So that it's a community-wide discussion that needs to continue to be had. So I encourage you to continue to get engaged everywhere.
Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt option 1, the maximum levy.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
No.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item 9B is terminating the redevelopment project area of the city of Zion, Illinois and related matters, Sheridan Road TIF for City Administrator Nabel.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is a required ordinance. As we discussed, TIF 1 closed out. This is the ordinance that'll go down to the county saying it's closed, it's done, release all of that development value back onto the tax rolls. So they need this filed to be able to add that as basically new construction. I'm estimating that somewhere between $12.5 to $13 million of new assessed value, which is probably about $2.5 million of taxes across all taxing bodies that will be that will benefit the taxing bodies as a result of the TIF.
Is there a motion?
I'm going to approve
I
the
think we
termination.
have to do this. We can't not do this.
I'll move to approve the terminating the redevelopment project area.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item 9C is amending section 94-408 of the Zion Municipal Code regarding water, sewer, waste deposits per city administrator Nabel.
Thank you again, Mayor Commissioners. We were approached, or there were citizen comments a couple of meetings ago discussing our deposit policy for water, waste, and sewer signups. The prior policy, or the policy currently states that the amount of the deposit is based on the quarterly average over the prior 12 months. And that was the measure for basically the exposure to the city should somebody not pay their bill. We could apply the deposit to that. So we required that amount of deposit. That didn't take into account if somebody had 5 people in their household prior, but now it was a couple that just moved in there. They're obviously going to use less water, but they had to put a bigger deposit down. Vice versa is true too. You know, there was a couple there, and now a large family moves in. Their deposit's smaller, but the exposure is larger. So we looked at the policy and tried to decide whether there was a way that was more equitable. And what I did is propose changes to a fixed amount for the deposit. And the amount that I'm proposing is a $200 deposit effective January 1st. So all signups January 1st and forward would be subject to this policy. I took all of the residential, I looked at the past 12 months of billings, looked at the residential amounts, the number of residential units, and it came out to about $195 on average for garbage and water. So I said, we'll do a flat $200 is my proposal here. And I also, we have some other cleanup items here, but what we were doing on multifamily units was a flat $200 maximum deposit as well. And we didn't discuss this, but I would also propose that we make that to be $125 times the number of units served for a property that is more than 4 or more units. Because you have, let's say you have 4 bills on that property, there's more than a $200 exposure to that property should bills go unpaid. The reason that it's less than the 200, however, is because we don't require 4 or more units to sign up for garbage. They have to have a private garbage contract, so we backed off the $75 for the garbage on that. And then there's a slight change to someone who signs up for garbage and sewer only, no water account, to just be a flat 100 as well. Again, garbage and sewer costs on average were $25 for sewer and $72 for garbage, so I'm proposing $100 on that, just to kind of make it a flat amount across the board. Again, you know, nothing's going to be ideal. There's still some people that might have a $120 water and garbage bill that they'd have to deposit $200. There's others that would have a $300 water and garbage bill. Their deposit is also $200. But at least this is flat across the board. Whether more equitable or not, I'd leave that to you, but I'd recommend the changes as proposed.
Seems more equitable.
Yeah, that seems like a good compromise. My only question is there a reason that we're not making it effective tomorrow? Rather than January 1? I mean, if somebody comes in tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, we're gonna charge them the old rate. And just because it just seems like if this is what we're gonna do, let's do it.
I was just
I know.
sort of for some lead time warning, you know, get some word out there, but there's no particular reason other than just a clean cutoff. January 1st is nice.
I think
no particular
December
reason. We can make it
20th is really nice too.
That works too.
I don't know. Is anybody? Am I the only one that cares?
Does it say in the ordinance goes into effect January 1?
Yes.
We don't know if it does.
So then it goes into effect when we approve it.
Correct.
From an accounting standpoint, would it be cleaner for the finance department to deal with it effective January 1?
It doesn't matter because our fiscal year is April 30th, so there's no real cutoff issues that we have to deal with there. I was just wondering if somebody was coming in tomorrow and they went, oh, yesterday you decided to make it 200 and it would have been 125, but it could work the other way too. So, but you're not going to avoid that whether it's January 1st or
It's not in the ordinance I mean, once it's approved, it's.
Once it's approved, it's part of the code, I guess. So ignore my January 1st.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk after.
That never happened.
Type this up real quick.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this change in the municipal code.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Is there further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item 9D, authorize execution of an agreement by and between the City of Zion and Clinton Auto Auction for the disposition of surplus vehicles per Chief Dumian.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. In June of 2016, the City of Zion entered into an agreement with Clinton Auto Auction, located in Clinton, Illinois, to liquidate seized vehicles and surplus vehicles owned by the City of Zion in order to allow us to use a single means of liquidating surplus vehicles. The current agreement expires on December 31st, 2017. I respectfully request the City of Zion Council approve the renewal of the agreement between the City of Zion and Clinton Auto Auction with no changes to the agreement from the prior year.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item 9E is amend section 90-144 and 90-146 of the Zion Municipal Code regarding parking limits and additional 2-hour parking regulations at certain locations per City Administrator Nabel.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. If you haven't heard enough from me tonight, I got more here. We actually had a meeting with businesses. We invited all businesses between 26th Street and 28th Street on Sheridan Road to provide input on parking regulations in front of their businesses and what would work best for them. There was some questions about 2-hour parking being beneficial or hurting businesses, things like that. So we actually had a meeting where we invited all of the businesses to come and provide input. For those that weren't able to attend the meeting, we provided a form that they could provide feedback as well in written form. Based on that, we have some changes to the code proposed so that on the west side of Sheridan Road from 26th to 27th Street, there will be 2-hour parking in effect at all times. On the east side of the road from 26th to 27th Street, there will be 2-hour parking from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then unlimited after that. The same would be in effect on the west side from 27th to 28th Street, 2-hour parking from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and unlimited after that. And I believe that's the same on the east side as well, the way we have this written. So basically it's 2-hour parking Monday through Friday everywhere except from 26th to 27th Street on the west side. That's 2-hour parking all the time. And those are the effects of the changes that are in the ordinance proposed in front of you. Now, there's one correction on this. On the first page, section 1C, we have it shall be unlawful to park a motor vehicle for more than 30 minutes. That actually should be 2 hours, so I'm asking that you change that as well.
Thank you, Mayor, for calling the parking meeting, and I think we had a good discussion, and I'll make a motion we approve this ordinance.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Is there a discussion?
Just a question about enforcement. How, what are we going to do as far as enforcing the 2-hour limit on this one section?
Well, first off, we'll have to give our community service officers a play card there for those changes. They're a little confusing. It'll probably be the same that we're doing now. It'll be primarily with our community service officers and officers in their downtime in the 4th section.
Going to have to give them a little color-coded map.
I think so.
Placard, yeah.
Well, there'll be signs up.
There'll be signage.
They can drive down Sheridan Road and it'll say 2-hour parking 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and the other area will be 2-hour parking all the time. So
are we doing any kind of publicity on this to give people a heads up because we're making these changes, or are we just gonna
it's actually
put signs up and let them take their chances?
It's actually this is loosening the parking downtown.
Right.
Because it's been, right now it's 2-hour parking all the time on all 4 blocks, and we're actually making it easier for people. So, yeah, well, hopefully we'll have something in the newspaper about it. Maybe we'll take out an ad that we can get the word out. But yeah, it's actually loosening parking. So if people are used to what they've been doing, this will make it easier on them.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item 9F is extending a special use permit for medical cannabis cultivation center in the G1 General Industrial Zoning District for property located east of Deborah Avenue at 2809 Deborah for Mayor Hill. You have seen this a few times in the past. We've approved a special use permit, but there was
There was one extension.
right, there was one extension, and now this is the second extension. It's my understanding, and I think I told this to you the last time also, and I apologize to have to bring this back, but this has been under litigation, and it should be very close to being finalized, and hopefully there'll be a permit granted to the people that want to put this in down there. So I'm asking that for this extension, if we could do that. Is there a motion?
So moved.
You have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. And yes, let me go back. One of the issues on this is we want to be sure that if they do in fact win the lawsuit and they are going to get a license to do this, that all their ducks are in a row. Because if this expires, then somebody can make the argument that you don't have a location to do this. So we're doing this so that if everything's still lined up. Item number 10 is discussion, authorization, of approval. 10A is consider approval of ground lease agreements between Flat Rock Holding, LLC, and the City of Zion for certain property located at 2809 Damascus and passing an ordinance accordingly per Mayor Hill. This is the same thing, except we are extending the ground lease for the property.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item 10B is tabulation of bids, HVAC annual maintenance services for City Hall, Police Administration, Fire Station 1 and 2, and Public Works per Director Ianson, and he is not here.
Yeah, he's not here.
ill.
He's ill tonight, so I'm going to present this. Mayor and Commissioners, the city received 2 bids for the 2018 HVAC annual maintenance for City Hall, Police Administration, Public Works, and Fire Station 1 and 2. Both bids were responsive bids. McDonald Mechanical Services, $16,865. And Northern Weather Makers, $16,899. Based on past experience with both contractors, staff is recommending the responsible bidder, Northern Weather Makers, for $16,899.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Deteen?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinney?
Aye.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Mayor Hill?
Aye. Item 11 is departmental commentary. Do any of the department heads have anything that they would like to announce or discuss? Okay, my turn. I would like to be sure that people understand that we are back in business with a local newspaper, the Zion Benton Times. Will be coming out for the first time when? Friday. And I am hopeful that this will serve the same purpose or even better than Zion Benton News did in the past of reporting on local news for schools and the city and everybody that's involved in our community. I think that paper is very, very important, and I do appreciate you stepping forward and bringing that to our community. I would also like to take this opportunity, I think, on behalf of the entire City Council to wish everyone a Happy Hanukkah, which I believe the last day is tomorrow, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. I want to particularly wish our staff members a great holiday time, and commissioners, you also. I hope everybody has a
Happy Kwanzaa.
Great holiday. Kwanzaa, is that? Okay, I'm sorry. Item number 12 is announcements. December 25th and 26th and January 1st and 2nd, city office is closed for the holidays. January 3rd, 7 p.m. is the Zion City Council meeting. January 15th is city office is closed for Martin Luther King holiday. We do not have closed session, so item 14, we'll talk about that now, is to consider IMRF early retirement incentive per Mayor Hill. I'm going to ask Mr. Nabel to help me out, or in fact, more than help me out, will probably, I would say, take the lead. But one of the things that an opportunity that we have, again, on cutting costs in the city is we've investigated through the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund offering an early retirement incentive, and that can hurt us in some ways because we would be losing experienced city employees, but we would be replacing them with obviously inexperienced city employees, but at I'm guessing at a significantly lower rate. And Director Nabel has given you a worksheet, and we're not asking, we can't do anything tonight. We're not asking you just received this tonight, but I think after discussion, we would like to know if we can proceed so that at the meeting on January 19th, I'm sorry, January 3rd, I'm sorry, January 3rd, we could adopt the resolution necessary so that if at all possible, I think we would want to have this, and if I understand it correctly, make it effective at the end of January so that people could go immediately at the end of January and then receive their first pension payment in February. If we waited until a February meeting, even if it's the first meeting in February, I believe they would not receive their first payment until March. So they would be retired for a month without getting a payment for their pensions. But anyway, Mr. Nabel?
Sure. So what you have before you, the first 4 pages were actually prepared by IMRF. It's an actuarial analysis on the effect of the early retirement incentive program. This is a required first step by IMRF before adopting the resolution. So this just shows how many individuals are eligible to retire based on number of years of service and age, and also who would become eligible to retire during the window. The early retirement incentive window has to be open for a year. So basically any employees during that year that hit eligibility can also still take advantage of this. You can only do this, I think, once every 5 years, and we're fine with that. We haven't done that in the past 5 years. So there's a bunch of actuarial assumptions in here based on salary, historical raises, things like that.
And what this does, the actual early retirement incentive, the incentive is that anybody that wishes to retire gets 5 years added to their age. If you retire prior to 60 years of age, you lose 3% per year of the years prior to 60. So if you would retire at 57, you're going to lose 9% of your pension. And what this does is it gives them 5 years of age that would take them over 60, and they wouldn't lose that. It also gives them 5 years of additional service. So when you look at the payments on the pension, it is it's years of service, amount that you make, and then you go over here, and this is what the pension payment is. And this gives them an incentive to retire early, it gives us the opportunity to hire in people at a lower wage.
Correct.
Go ahead, Dave. I just want to be sure that people understood where the incentive was.
Yes, yes. So as the mayor said, we have the actuarial part is the first part as part of the requirement, and then what I did is prepared a spreadsheet that shows what the employee's cost would be. This is a worst case scenario that if they bought 5 years, the maximum you can buy is 5 years. So if every employee that's eligible had to buy 5 years of service, they would be required to put in their share of the contributions for that time period, and then the city would have to put in their share of the contributions. So this is an estimate. Again, if only 3 people took advantage of this, the effect would be, on those 3 people. But what I have is the employer portion, that third column there is our potential exposure. We can spread that out over a 10-year period. So on January 3rd, if you decide to proceed, we would be adopting 2 resolutions. The first would be adopting the early retirement incentive. The second would be a resolution for our amortization period. You can go up to 10 years on that. The fourth column is what we would get, what I estimate we would get in savings based on either just replacement or union contract of replacing somebody who might be on the top step of a contract with a new employee. So our maximum exposure, my estimate of what we'd have to pay is $453,000 over 10 years, but I estimate that we could potentially save in salary annually $175,000. So if you look at that $453,000 over 10 years, that's $45,000 a year. We could save $175,000 in salary. We'd have a net savings of $130,000 a year by doing this, which is a pretty significant chunk of money. Again, there's other factors on whether the employee wants to retire, whether they can afford their piece, things like that. But this is our maximum. If only half took it, our amount might be $22,500. And our savings might be $70,000 instead of $130,000, but there still would be savings as a result of this.
Would there be any savings in healthcare coverage or not?
Potentially, depends on if you might have somebody retiring who's just them and their spouse, and somebody coming in as family, okay, or vice versa. That's not factored into this because we don't know what those scenarios would be. We wanted to do this based on salary solely. Mm-hmm. Because those others are an unknown, but potentially there is. Yeah. So I'm based on this, I would recommend that when the resolution that we proceed forward with the early retirement incentive option.
Any comments, commissioners?
We're not going to be acting on it tonight.
No, we won't be acting on it tonight. But what we will be doing is directing Mr. Nabel to come up with a resolution that we would be acting on in the first meeting in January.
I think we should do that.
January 3rd. We don't need a motion.
No, this is discussion only.
I have a question about, January 3rd is the first Wednesday.
So January 2nd, then.
Right.
No, offices are closed January 2nd. That's why it got moved to the 3rd Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
So, okay.
We are having a city council meeting on the 3rd.
Correct.
Okay.
That Wednesday.
Right. Thank you, Chris.
I kept hearing January 3rd, and I'm going, okay.
Okay, all right.
You could ask if that's a consensus, that you prepare a resolution. That is the
Is that the consensus that he prepare a resolution for this?
I believe so, yeah. I think this is an opportunity to save some money on personnel.
Right.
bring it up.
Okay. Item number 15 is adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried.
I wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, 8:30. You look really familiar. It's been driving me nuts since I walked in here.
So I can go soon.